Let's do it. It's in progress. Amazing. Hi, folks who are just going to be listening later. Welcome. We just did a round of introductions here. I can tell you who's here later if you want to know, but we're going to jump right in and ask Kevin to give us both a description of the trip, any updates that you have, including perhaps deadline, kind of remind us of the deadline. I can handle some of those logistics later, but if you can kind of give us a picture of what we'd be signing up for as a starting place, and then we can take some questions if folks have questions. Cool?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, I am really glad to have folks here today. Glad that I could be joining you all from the Twin Cities. And I'm excited that there's some interest in learning a little bit more about this trip to Washington, D.C. that will be happening next, well, actually now it's this July, July 21st through 28th of 2023. And it'll be a week-long trip to Washington, D.C. And really the main objective of that is to invite the youth and adults who will be going on this trip into an experience of lobbying their members of Congress and actually really the entire Minnesota congressional delegation. That's the goal anyway, is that we can set up meetings for youth to engage with their elected representatives around issues that matter to you. And so what that means is we'll spend some time once we know who all is the group that will be going on this trip, spending time talking about the legislative issues that matter to you, and spend some time doing prep work, working with folks in our local congregations, working with our office in Washington, D.C., the UCC national office there, to do prep work for these kinds of visits, and hopefully encouraging those who have already had some kind of experience like this to deepen their engagement, and to give people who haven't ever done anything like this to have a chance to find your voice in this community of youth. I will say that as the Minnesota Conference, we get to work with about 120 congregations around the state of Minnesota. And so our goal is that we will have as many of our congregations as possible participating in this. As of right now, we have about 10 congregations that have expressed interest, about 7 of who've already had youth and adults register for the trip. So we're kind of beginning that process. I'll also say that we'll be joined by some youth from the Northern Plains Conference of the United Church of Christ, which is the state of North Dakota, as well as one congregation in East Grand Forks, Minnesota, that are represented in the Northern Plains. So it won't just be Minnesota, but we'll have some contingency from North Dakota as well. So it'll mean that there'll be some folks who are meeting with both the senators and representative from the state of North Dakota too. So in addition to this focus on legislative lobbying work, we really want to invite the community that's going to begin doing some of your own reflection around what are the gifts and kind of skills that you bring, and how might those be used to help shape the world in a more just and equitable kind of way. So there'll be some opportunities for us to meet with other people kind of on the ground in Washington, D.C., who are doing all kinds of work. People who have chosen to do work in government sector, folks who've chosen to do not-for-profit work, folks who are doing some social justice work in their community, and then other people who are doing kind of regular jobs in a variety of ways, but who are choosing to engage in social justice work outside of their vocational work. And so kind of give a sense of how people and young adults, have chosen to kind of live their faith in a variety of ways in their work and in their volunteering in that. Along the way, DC is a great city to kind of view and experience all kinds of things. So we will also take in a number of the sites, the rich kind of collection of museums and memorials and monuments along the way. Definitely will want to incorporate things like the Holocaust Museum and Memorial, things hopefully like the Frederick Douglass House, which we still don't have word about whether that is open or not. There's some renovation work going on. But a number of other of those kind of historic and important social justice sites along the way. So that we can, again, have that sort of well-rounded experience. And have some space for fun and connection with one another. Because the other goal is for youth who are connected to the United Church of Christ to get to know other youth, from places beyond their own local community, have that deeper connection and deeper sense of what the United Church of Christ is and how it gets lived out in similar and different ways in places all across our state and across the country. So that in a nutshell is sort of that. And I can give more specifics, but want to see what questions you have about, what we will be doing, kind of the purpose of the trip, those kinds of things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. This is my first time doing hybrid because I was like, what do I do? Do I sit here? Do I sit over there? So I'm going to attempt to do this in the best way. Maybe if folks here have questions, raise your hand. You can either come up here or tell me and I can repeat it for folks. And then online, I guess you could raise your hand if you want, or just, like literally, or your little box, raising hand box. Sound good? All right. Questions? Yes.
They said that we're going to be lobbying for change. Should we decide that before we go on the trip and we already have stuff prepared to do? Or is it something that we need to talk to with other churches about? Or
Cool. So if you didn't hear that, Kevin or others, the question was around lobbying. Is what we're going to lobby on going to be decided before? Is there prep work? Will we decide when we get there?
Yes. So I'll answer that twofold. One is, yes, there will be advanced prep work. And this will be where we will invite local congregations to do some of their own work and kind of working with youth who are part of that. But also we're going to try to do a couple of Zoom meetings with the larger group of everyone who will be going to do some of that advanced prep work. Because it helps. There can be multiple kind of issues that folks want to bring forward, but it's very helpful when we are in a specific meeting with a representative, so with a member of Congress, that the topics are much more specific, so that there are one or two issues that you're going to bring up and really advocate for. So the entire group may have 8 to 10 things, or whatever it is, that over the course of our meetings, so some of that will be decided in advance, and the prep work can happen in advance. And our Washington, D.C. office has a number of supports and resources for that we will make sure to get out to everyone who's going to be part of the trip to begin that prep work. The other reality, though, is that things can happen quickly. And so there might be some really pressing pieces of legislation that are coming up before Congress during our time or close to our time there. And so it might be really helpful for us to have flexibility to also see what are the pieces of legislation that will be on the agenda, so that our group has a chance to weigh in on those, and to actually let the members of Congress know where it is that you all stand on those things that they will be deliberating and voting on. So it's a both and of the advance work plus being willing to see what the agenda actually is while we're there.
Cool, thanks, Kevin. That answer your question yet? I see Bergen's hand. Go for it, Bergen.
When will these meetings happen?
When will these meetings happen, Kevin? Tell us.
Yes. So, I'll give some logistical pieces. The first is that the registration deadline for the trip is January 31st. So the end of this month is when we will know, who is the group that will be going. And so what I'm going to be doing, we have some tentative dates for these Zoom meetings, and we realize that schedules are busy. And so what we're going to try to do is hold a Sunday, either afternoon or evening Zoom call. And right now we're sort of looking tentatively at what is that Sunday? February 28th as a possibility. But then we would also want to do maybe a Wednesday evening time, which would be Wednesday, March 1st, to see if people could make one of those work in their normal schedule. So what I'm going to do, as soon as we know the trip, once registration closes, I'm going to put out those two dates and see if the majority of folks can make one or the other of those. If for some reason there is a large number of folks for whom that just does not work, then we'll try to find another contingency. But we're hoping that those might be dates that would work for a majority of the trip group.
Cool, thanks, Kevin.
Can you email us?
I will email Peace folks. Yes. Other questions? Yes, just.
Question from Craig. Just wondering if friends can be invited.
Oh, yeah.
Who are not connected to this church or other churches.
Yeah, so this is maybe a question both for me and for you, Kevin. So the question was, can friends be invited who are not a part of the church? And I'll maybe answer from my perspective, and Kevin, if you want to either add a different answer or add on to what I share. This question came up recently with another parent from Peace, and what I shared is we of course love to build community at Peace, and whoops, Kristen's trying to come back in. There we go. We also don't want to. We don't want to be a community that says just come for one trip and then we'll see you later, right? So what I tell people is there's no test that says you're a part of enough a part of Peace Church that that you can or cannot. But I usually tell people, if you think this is an entry point into being continued, a continued connection with the church or the UCC conference, then yes, please come, have this be a good experience. There's not going to be like oh, you didn't come back and slap a hand or anything. But if you're pretty sure that you're not really wanting to be a part of the community after, and that can look a lot of different ways. You could come to one event a year and that's still a part of the community to me. But some kind of commitment that's not just like, hey, everybody, come join us, right? For just a one-time thing.
Yeah, that's like another ticket you're paying for. That's
Right.
food.
If we're fundraising, it's another thing if somebody says, I'll pay my whole way, but even that can affect the community in different ways. So, Kevin, do you want to add anything to that? And maybe NOT,
Yeah.
maybe one version?
And I'll say kind of what I've said to a few other congregations that have asked this question, is that I think there is an openness to that, but it is about building a trustworthy community, which means that it isn't just about participating in that week that we are in Washington, D.C., but folks who actually have made a commitment to being connected to the group from one of the local communities who is going on the trip. And so participating in fundraising. I mean, whether it's a new person or someone who is connected to the congregation, the fundraising isn't just about raising money, but it is the time where community and that trust is formed and built, relationships are deepened. So even if a family is willing to cover the entire cost, I typically say that isn't what this is about. One, it's about investing the broader church community in this experience that youth are going on. And it's about building relationships and trust among those folks who will be going on. So when I am in local congregational ministry, the fundraising becomes a mandatory component, regardless of whether a family is able to cover full cost or not, because it's more than just the financial piece. And certainly then for somebody, a friend who might be wanting to join on, it would be about participating in those, the prep work, being connected in however the local congregation is deciding to bring youth together to prepare for the trip. But all of those things are an essential part of that experience. And then also there's a commitment to telling the story of the trip after the trip. And so there's the commitment as well to how are you going to be part of that ongoing storytelling for the community that sent you and that supported you on this. And that would apply to everyone, again, even those folks who might just come in who haven't been part of the community in advance of this, but who've chosen to kind of join in for this. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yes. We got a sure for back. I got another thing I want to add for my people here at Peace, but Enno, do you want to add anything from your church?
As long as the youth bring me a dozen cookies every month, I don't care who shows up.
There it is. The how to follow Jesus. Bring dozen of cookies, and we have achieved.
And I get to see you once a month.
Collective salvation. All right, awesome. Here's what I want to add for people that are watching this after and the people here. Kevin mentioned fundraising, actually. So I'm often in conversation with Kevin. He gives me lots of great ideas. I think Kevin's amazing. And one of the things that I'd like to do this year is raise money. Maybe we can talk about this, youth especially talk about this, but I think doing some kind of like, you can buy a share of the cost of trips sometime in spring. And then once we come back, doing a dinner for shareholders in the fall. We'll probably do some sort of like the Sunday after, here's what we did, the quick version, and then a dinner in the fall, invite everybody, but thank the shareholders, and then invite folks to donate again for the following year, right? So that's kind of our plan here. And my hope is, I think this is really possible in our congregation because we have really folks that really support youth. I think it's going to be possible to either get close to this or to do this to cover most of the trip for each of our youth, right? So Kevin didn't go into these details, but there's when you register, there's a $200 sort of registration fee, just as hey, we're committed. And we have, if that's for anyone listening, if that is a challenge, let me know, and we have scholarships to help cover that. But that sort of helps get a foot in the door. And then after that, my hope is we can cover everything else through fundraising.
Yeah, and I will say that is the one, because we will be, we haven't talked much about logistics yet, but part of the reason for that is certainly so that there is a commitment to the trip, but also very quickly after the January 31st deadline is when we will be making initial airline deposits. And so that's part of helping, provide that. And I will say that, that the cost of the trip right now is $850, which includes all of the lodging and meals and ground transportation, as well as airfare for the trip. The actual cost we anticipate is around $1,150 to $1,200 per person, but the conference will be covering that, at least $300 to $350 per participant through a grant from the Ashley Endowment. So there is that piece that the conference is subsidizing. And to put it out there for folks, there will be some additional scholarship funding available. We really want local congregations to have a part in that and to be full partners in helping support that. But we also don't want money to be a barrier. And so there will be some additional scholarship funding. And so Nathan and Inno, for your folks, I would just encourage you, if there are some things that come up, talk with me and we can talk
Awesome.
about what's available.
Awesome. And let me just emphasize for anyone who that you're thinking about the trip, you're like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of money. I don't think we can do that. Or even like, we could probably do that, but that might be a stretch for us. Like, don't let that get in your way of signing up. Sign up. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so I'll say a little bit about travel logistics too. So we will be flying, and then we will be staying, depending on the size of the group, at either one or two hostels very near Capitol Hill. They're in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. One is the Washington Seminar Center, which is a ministry of the Capitol Hill Presbyterian Church. And the other is Friends Place, which is a ministry of the Friends Committee. And both of these have accessible spaces. The full buildings are not accessible, but each offers kind of bunk style rooms with 3 to 4 beds per room. And we will be doing our best to accommodate all housing requests. So there will be all gender spaces available. There will be spaces for male identified, female identified. So we'll try to accommodate that same thing around bathroom and shower spaces. We'll try to have a variety of options available, including some designated private spaces as well. So we will have to get the lay of the land a little bit. I'm waiting on floor plans and kind of what the bathrooms look like on each level. We will also have shared kitchen access. And so at least one meal a day and possibly 2 on most days. Part of the experience will be the group preparing meals for one another as part of the ways that we will help. One, make sure we have some appropriate downtime, but we'll also be kind of tending to one another through some of that shared meal prep and shared reflection time each day back at the hostels after whatever we've been doing for the day. Because of the location, we'll be doing a lot of walking. And so since we're in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, it gives us good access. We'll also be traveling a lot by DC Metro, which is a wonderful public transit system. So that will be the primary ways that we're moving around the city, but we'll be walking in Metro. We do want to make sure that we're providing, accommodation. And so we will have the capacity to have a rental van if we do have folks with accessibility needs. And so part of the registration is asking that question because we want to make sure that it's as accessible as possible, for any of our participants.
Cool. Thank you, Kevin. I know it's getting to be about 12:30, so I just want to say, like, if there's anyone online or in here that you feel like you've got what you needed, feel free to peel off when you need to, but we want to keep it open for questions if folks have more.
I've got a question and then we got to head out. I don't know if this is the right venue or not, but if it is, could we talk a little bit about the adult, that kind of chaperone piece and what is possible or numbers, if there's limits and that kind of thing, or if that's something that we should do offline, that's fine too.
No, I think that's a really good question. So thank you, Kristen. The minimum ratio that we are going for is 1 adult for every 4 youth. Where our registration is right now, we have 17 youth and 5 adults who are registered. We may end up with a few more adults, which is okay, because we really are asking each congregation that is going to send at least 1 adult, even when they may have fewer than 4 youth. It's going to be really important for youth who are going on the trip to have 1 adult that they have a relationship with. And so that's going to be a part of that. There are going to be a couple of congregations who do not have an adult who will be going, that will have 2 or 3 youth, and we're going to then kind of pair them up with another congregation. But that's the minimum goal, is 1 adult for every 4 youth. And we want to make sure that we don't vary too much from that. But like I said, it's likely that we will end up with a slightly higher adult to youth ratio because of, like I said, a few of our congregations having fewer than 4 youth will be going. The other part is I'm looking, and there are a few people that I've been in conversation with who have some healthcare background, whether they are a nurse, physician, nurse practitioner, who will be able to help do medication management, as well as attend to any unforeseen accidents, injuries, illness that comes up along the way. So trying to make sure that we have those adults, who can really, who have the training and experience to help attend to any of those healthcare, needs that arise over the course of the trip.
Cool. Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions, comments? Yes, brilliant.
If one of our youth is sick and we have not sick, but just not feeling the best.
Yeah.
Everybody else has a plan to do stuff during the day. Mm-hmm. What will that do?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, Kevin, or for anyone else. So it's a question about sickness. If, let's say, of course, there's always the, oh no, COVID happens, and then we have, you can maybe tell us a little bit about that, but also even just like somebody gets a cold and then they test negative, but they don't feel well enough to go out. What's kind of the plan if somebody gets sick? Would they sit around? What would happen?
And that's really why we're trying to plan and have additional adults, because the conference staff who are going and the healthcare kind of designated volunteers who will be going do not count in our 1-to-4 ratio. Because we want to make sure we have additional adults who can stay back if necessary if folks are ill, who could accompany youth or another adult who, if there was the need for an urgent care or, an emergency room visit, hopefully not. But we're trying to staff in a way that there could be adults who could be present and attend to that, because we certainly, do not want any youth who is ill, having to be out and traveling. And then there will be, COVID protocols, all those other kinds of things we will be revisiting as we get closer, as more, closer to the time. And there will be those contingency plans where, if a youth needs to return home, then we would make those arrangements and figure out, the adult who could help, be the companion for that as well. So that's really why we're trying to make sure that we have really adequate adult staff available for those kinds of contingencies.
Cool. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, Laura.
You said the healthcare staff would handle medication.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just for prescription meds? Are we expected to give those to someone?
So just to repeat here, it was a question about medication, and if there are prescription meds, are they expected to hand them to someone?
Yes. Yeah, and that will
Quick
be
answer.
um, the difference, the exceptions to that would be if there are rescue inhalers, EpiPens, those kinds of things that are needed in the moment. We certainly will know about that. We'll want to check in, but some of those things youth will be able to have. Most other things will be turned in, and we'll have both someone who's distributing those and who's logging those medications throughout the trip.
Cool. Yeah. All right.
Is that just for prescription meds, or
Got
is
it.
over-the-counter stuff fine?
Right. Good question. So just follow up. Is that just for prescription, or is over the counter included in that if folks have,
Yeah, part of it is that's where we run into the issue that I know this may seem a little bit more restrictive than folks are used to, but the liability for working with underage youth, then the responsibility is on the conference. And so part of the authorization form and the health information form that parents will complete will have not only a place to list out any prescription medication, but a place for parents to provide authorization for dispensing over-the-counter medications. And so it really will be based on what parents authorize in that, which is also then why that would be managed by the volunteers who are going for that role.
cool. Follow-up question again. Here you go. Go ahead.
So he's talking about volunteers as in the healthcare staff, or as in just the chaperones who carry the medication and dispense
Right.
it when you need it?
Kevin, you meant the folks that are kind of holding all the medication, not like, for example, if I were on the trip, I wouldn't take any over-the-counter medications, right? Like I wouldn't give that out to youth as an adult leader. Yep. So just, and I'm assuming the healthcare volunteers are going to be amazing and really, friendly to talk to and easy to be like, hey, I need it for this, right?
Exactly. It really will be. I mean, that's the whole thing. This is not about trying to be a barrier and to, prevent youth from having access to, if they have a headache, to some kind of, pain medication. But it really is about making sure that what we are dispensing is in alignment with what parents have authorized.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. How are we doing? Good? Got the information we need? Yeah, go ahead.
Registration online?
Yeah, Azalea.
Oh, Azalea has a question. So right before you jump in there, Azalea, question about registration online. I can answer it. I will send it to you. In fact, I think we need to get you on our email list. And it's an online link. Yeah. So for those who didn't hear me say that, there's a registration online link that the conference has sent me, and I will send it out and make sure that all of our folks have it. If you didn't get it, let me know. Azalea.
Okay, so like when we meet with the lawmakers, are we like discussing the legislation they're going to be talking about, or are we proposing them new legislation?
Actually, it can be both. So for example, it would be really helpful that, yes, if there is a piece of legislation that they're going to be considering, that you have the chance to weigh in on that. So that's one side of it. The other piece would be, whether it could be, I don't know, sensible gun violence prevention legislation or some kind of, environmental legislation that is not going to be coming up, but that is really important to youth or any other thing. It's also about advocating for that as well and registering that you're not paying attention to this thing that is really important to me and my peers. So it's both and of that, because we really want to make sure that the young folks who are going on the trip really have a chance to leverage their own power and voice and saying, this matters. Even if I'm not of voting age right now, I will be in a couple of years, and this is what matters to me. And even though I'm not, you still represent me and my interest.
Cool. So we'll bring Azalea Bill 101 to the congressperson that we go see. Do you know about the Azalea Bill? It's very important. All right. Are we Any other last questions folks need to know? Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all for listening. I almost want to be like, okay, now everybody, who's ready to commit? But I won't put you on the spot. But I am really excited about it. I think it's going to be an amazing trip. And I think that piece around getting to know other folks from other churches and sort of like, oh, I'm a part of something that's bigger than even just my home community, I think is going to be a really amazing thing. And I'm really excited for that you're all here, and I hope you'll sign up. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I would love to see every one of you be part of this. Really looking forward to it. And if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them. So you can reach out to me directly or funnel them through Nathan and Inno, and be happy to try to answer whatever comes up.
Cool. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.